Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Alise A Prejean of Knowthyselfandheal.com. So I wanted to do a quick video for you. Today's March 15th, 2023, and Mars in Gemini is in a first quarter square exact with Neptune, and Mercury is in a balsalmic conjunction to Neptune, and the Sun and Neptune are conjunct. And so this is an interesting day, so I wanted to share some insights that were coming to me about this. One thing to know is that Mars is now out of post-shadow phase, and if you don't know, when a planet retrogrades, we know that there's a pre-shadow, and then it retrogrades, and there's a post-shadow. So the pre-shadow is when the planet that's going to retrograde begins to cover the part of the sky that it's going to retrograde in. So the degrees of your chart, for example, right? And this prepares us for that retrograde. So we can always look at in the pre-shadow what's coming up in our lives, because those are the themes we'll be working with. And in this case with Mars, right? Our yang energy. So we went through the pre-shadow, Mars went retrograde, and then it went direct, and then it has to cover the part of the sky that it retrograded through. So now that it's reached 25 degrees, it's actually finished its covering the degrees that it retrograded at. And so this completes the cycle. And interestingly, as we complete the cycle, it exactly squares Neptune in Pisces, and with the Sun. So the Sun is conjunct Neptune and in Pisces, and Mercury, the planetary guide to Gemini, where Mars has been for 6 or 7 months, right? Is the ruler, okay, of that sign. So Mercury is in what's called the balsalmic conjunction to Neptune, and that just means a completing conjunction. It's completing a cycle with Neptune. Mercury and Neptune have a pretty special relationship because Mercury not only rules Gemini or guides Gemini consciousness, but it also guides Virgo consciousness. And Virgo sits right across from Pisces. And so Virgo and Pisces work together. And so Mercury coming into this completing conjunction with Neptune, this can, with the Sun right there, right? This can really be showing how, how much we have osmosed in our thoughts, ideas, perceptions, and then how that informs our beliefs, and vice versa, how our beliefs also inform the natural thoughts that bubble up, the perceptions that bubble up, the communication that bubbles up, right? And remember that Jupiter just crossed over Chiron in Aries. So Jupiter's in Aries. And so this is all about our personal beliefs around our own identity. So Pisces being the culminating sign of the zodiac, it's the ocean of consciousness. It contains all things. It contains all archetypes. It contains all signs. And so this is where we really are looking at our connection to source, because the source contains all things. Everything that exists is an expression of source consciousness. Now, with Gemini consciousness, this is where, in psychological development, this is where we actually define things and name things. We're saying, okay, there's this and there's that. And when we do that, we really get the opportunity to see things very vividly. And so this is the function of Gemini and of naming things, of actually this idea of separation, right, is to actually be able to see things, and to, particularly with Mars and Gemini, to select things. Because Mars is about selection. It's about our instinct to select things. And ultimately, in order to experience anything, we do have to select something out of the ocean of consciousness to actually experience or to contemplate or to believe, right? And those beliefs and contemplations are meant to support our own personal structure of consciousness, which is really meant to support our own evolutionary momentum, right? So Pisces is where we actually recognize that everything is all one consciousness. And wherever Neptune is in your natal chart, whatever house and sign, this is where you naturally see the divine essence and experience the divine essence, as well as view the divine essence, what lens you're viewing that from, right? And so, yeah, Pisces and Neptune is very much, our connection to source and the divine and what we see as divine. But it can also be where in its shadow or this idea of disillusioned place or confused place, it can be where we actually check out, where we actually, it's related to escapism. It's also related to victimhood and being a victim. And it's on a physical level related to infections and, viruses and bacteria in the body, right? It can be. And so this particular part of consciousness, it is very much source. It contains all things, even viruses, right? Even infection and things that are infections and infectious, right? And because it's the ocean of consciousness. So as Mercury is in this balsalmic conjunction with the sun as well, it's gonna, the Mercury will catch up with the sun, which is called Cazimi, on Friday. So that's actually on the 17th, March 17th, right? It's going to be at 26 degrees, this Cazimi, where Mercury completes a cycle with the sun and then will pass over the sun. And so this could really be having us look at where through our Geminian consciousness, we could have translated or bought into beliefs of separation. And this could have translated into being separated from source itself. Now, with Gemini consciousness, we recognize that even though we may have opposing ideas, different thoughts, different ways we perceive the world, by looking at things that appear to be different or appear to be opposite, yet if we're doing Gemini consciousness in the way that is regenerative, then we know that we recognize that it's through the opposing points of view that we really get to see what our preference is, what it is that supports us personally, and what is not supporting us personally, which is all right, because it's going to support someone somewhere else, right? Because all things in consciousness have a function. And so all of these things that even seem to oppose actually support holistic understanding and experience of the ocean of consciousness. So, as well as contribution to the ocean of consciousness, because we have to have a personal single point of view in order to actually contribute to the whole, right? So we can have, with this configuration of everything that I've talked about, we can have things coming up that give us the opportunity to really look at where we may have bought into ideas, thoughts, perceptions, and even our instinctual communications can expose where we actually believe that we are separated from source and that source is outside of ourselves. And so what's beautiful about that, what's helpful about that, is that we can actually then look at those ideas, thoughts, perceptions, and notice that if it's if we're seeing ourselves as disconnected from source, then we can see where it is we've actually given away our power, because we're all empowered, but we have to claim that power. And Mars is actually approaching, waxing into a quincunx to Pluto and Capricorn. Pluto is in the last handful of minutes of Capricorn. All this work we've been doing with Pluto being in Capricorn since 2010 has been about really looking at our internal structure of consciousness and noticing how our relationship to our own self and our own personal power, how that relates with what we see as other, right? Anything outside of ourselves. And are we actually disempowering ourselves or empowering ourselves? Are we buying into inequality or this idea that we are not empowered? And if we are, remember, that's just an idea. It's just a thought. It's just one angle of perception. And so with Mars moving into a quincunx, the adjustment that can be made where we are seeing how we're instinctually communicating or thinking or believing or even acting, where that is informing us, or maybe others, and how we're relating with others or how they're relating with us, where it is that we can make adjustments so that we actually harness our power and we recognize, okay, there's thoughts, ideas, beliefs that are actually disempowering me or disempowering others, that is actually not really inherently true, because ultimately we all have Pluto in our chart. We all have Mars and Venus. We all have Mercury. We all have Jupiter. We all are relating to these functions of consciousness in our own personal unique way. And it's really about recognizing that it's all for all of us to have. We have these functions of consciousness to actually serve our evolutionary purpose. And so therefore we can claim our own power. And the only thing that removes us from our own power and our own connection to source is, at the end of the day, ourselves, with the thoughts, ideas, perceptions, and beliefs that we've bought into, or that we've osmosed from the collective unconscious, Pisces, Neptune, and Jupiter as well. Jupiter is also the planetary guide to Pisces consciousness. So in this time frame, we can really be looking at that and getting the opportunity to really wrap up this Pluto and Capricorn in a way we will remember that our power is derived from recognizing that we are an expression of source. We are so connected to source that we may not even realize that we are. Meaning, it's kind of like, does the fish realize that it's swimming in water? Like, does it actually realize that it's moving through the water and it's actually breathing the water? It is the water. It's at one with the water, right? And so I always think of water as consciousness too. It's emotion as well. And so we could the fact that Neptune is at the very last 5 degrees of Pisces and Pluto is at the last 30 minutes of Capricorn. Both of these are yin energies, and this is about how we're structuring our relationship to the divine, to source consciousness, and then how our internal structure of consciousness is really in alignment with that or not, right? And how when we are not recognizing our own connection to source and our own, therefore, connection to our own power, then this is where we can easily and unconsciously give our power away. And also, our creativity away, give away what it is that is actually going to be a self-actualization of our own identity and our own power, as well as our own love and our own values. And so it's a good time to pay attention to these concepts, and remembering that Mars is going to move along and move into Cancer, and Pluto moves into Aquarius this month as well. Saturn's moved into Pisces. This can really help us and assist us to really hone in on, oh wow, I've taken on beliefs that somehow we're just in the collective, and actually it doesn't serve me, right? And my own personal path, my own personal garden of consciousness, remembering that Virgo, sitting across from Pisces, is about tending our own garden of consciousness and how that's in service to the collective unconscious and the collective consciousness. And so it doesn't really serve us personally if we disconnect from source, or we view ourselves as disconnected from source, that we need something outside of ourselves in order to be connected to source. We literally are birthed from source. We are literally an expression of source. We've emerged out of the ocean of consciousness into an individual awareness and an individual consciousness that is actually self-actualizing to contribute to collective consciousness and to our own personal evolutionary path and the evolutionary path of the collective. So remembering that Saturn's helping us and assisting us as it's in Pisces to really hone in on those belief structures. Jupiter moving over Chiron and being in Aries is expanding where we may have been wounded in our own identity, which really comes from this idea that we're disconnected from source. And so, remember that Aries is the emergence of I am. We've emerged out of the ocean of consciousness, Pisces, into our own personal identity of our own expression of the divine, and so that we can experience ourselves as the divine. And so Jupiter with Chiron has been likely exposing that, how that could have been exposed through how others are relating to us, how we're relating to others, our relationships. Are they balanced? Are there balances of power in our relationships? Are we empowering others? Are others empowering us? And so Jupiter has been expanding that, and Jupiter's really, what I see it is in Aries, is expanding what needs to be seen around our beliefs about our own identity. And so this is all great because Mars being the ruler of Aries, and how being in Pisces season, we're about to move into Aries season, which is emerging into something new, a new astrological year, right? This new emergence and seeding of our own identity. And so there's a lot of changes going on this month. And so this particular time frame with this Mars square Neptune, Mercury balsalmic, Neptune, and the Sun cazimi with Mercury cazimi the Sun on the 17th, this can really be helpful in looking at how we're perceiving our connection to source. And are we seeing things outside of ourselves? Are we seeing that, are we placing our connection to source to things outside of ourselves rather than internal and deriving from the internal dimension? And as we recognize and embrace source within, then we're actually embracing our own empowerment and our own power to create in the world and in our own lives, the life that we dream of and what it is that we dream to do and contribute in the world. So I hope this is helpful. And if you feel inclined, please do share the video. And if you feel inclined, please like it and share your thoughts, insights, perceptions. It always makes the conversation more rich. And thank you so much for joining me. And I will see you in the next video.